Okay, well, welcome everyone to our September AD meeting. We've got some of you who have made the trip in person, and we welcome you here, and then a good group of you are attending remotely. Notice those of you who are just joining the room, I'm interested in if any of you have recommendations for good books to read. We'll put that in the chat. This time of year is when I start to create my list of things that I want for Christmas, which usually is a book or two. This year, my youngest son, is a junior in high school, and as we got him ready to start his junior year, I started thinking about my last few years in high school, and that occurred in the 80s. And at the time, Ronald Reagan was our president. So the quote that I have this month just simply comes from my good memories of my adolescence. I think I'm to the point in my life where I can reflect on things and forget the challenges and think it was the good old days, always, right, back in the past. Forget that there was a Cold War. There was lots of other challenges that were going on then. We were just coming out of an inflationary period that is often referenced today. When they reference the last time there was inflation, that was in the late 70s, early 80s. We all lived through that time. So that's where my quote comes from. I want to talk a little bit about our accountability redesign. I've tried to give this group an update about that each month. We are a little behind schedule. We have planned on publishing the report that's been created through the work of the advisory and executive committees and share that with our Board of Education in October. However, the executive committee, we still need to meet with them. There's a draft report that's been prepared by the advisory committee with recommendations from their lens. The executive committee for this work needs to review that, and we're scheduled to meet towards the end of October. Probably isn't a surprise to many of you that getting together members of House leadership, Senate leadership, and state school board leadership is very challenging on their calendars. So we'll hopefully complete that at the end of October and bring those recommendations forward in November. I was asked to present an update to the Superintendent's Association on their week this past Monday morning. Some of you, if you've spoken to your superintendents, those who work in traditional LEAs, you may have heard some conversation about that. Again, I'll talk generally about those here, but please remember these are just, at this point, recommendations by the advisory committee alone. The executive committee still needs to review those. And then when those two parties come together, the report will include the finalized recommendations. But some changes that if they are forwarded through the full process would include the introduction of the accreditation system into the accountability system. One of the goals of the advisory committee as they've looked at this is to try to streamline and take advantage of information that we already have available related to school quality. The accreditation process, which occurs for schools in grades 9 through 12, and then also some of our partners out there I recognize do an LEA level accreditation. The advisory committee believes there's good information that's gathered through that process and would like to consider incorporating that information into the accountability system. There's also recommendations around local indicators. I think many of us in this meeting today know that right now an LEA or school actually can upload as many as 2 self-reported indicators. So there's been a history of some movement towards that process or path, but currently those are not scored indicators, and so there's not 100% compliance on LEAs or schools uploading that information. There's interest, though, in allowing LEAs or schools to identify within some constructs or bounds information that they would upload that would then be calculated and included in the school accountability system. That probably brings up lots of questions into your minds, most of which I wouldn't have the answers for at this point. How to develop some kind of a scoring system, that stuff would take time. There's been discussion by the advisory committee that to leverage this existing system where schools already have to identify some goals related to their greatest academic needs. They have to have those goals approved at the local level and also by the state school lands trust folks. They implement those goals, and then they do a report out on those goals in their public board meetings. So there's already some infrastructure in place that the advisory committee believes should be considered as a mechanism for advancing locally identified indicators. So exciting work that's going on there. And we expect, again, that those recommendations to be finalized by the end of October, and then they'll move into the legislative process and arena. And I like the superintendents that I talked to Monday, at that point is where it's really important that you use your advocacy channels to promote, you support those recommendations, because I don't know that it'll be smooth sailing. Accountability changes generally could be pretty difficult to navigate in the legislative process. And Michelle, did you want to add anything to that? Okay.
Let's agree, nodding in agreement.
Okay, thank you. The next thing is information update for you as well, not an action associated with this at this time. The Utah Consolidated Application, which was completed in 2017 by our State Board of Education. Some of you in this call probably participated in community engagement events related to the development of the Utah Consolidated Application. Back in that era, staff have been going through that plan and updating it in the lens of trying to ensure that the plan that was approved by the U.S. Department of Education and our Board of Education in 2017 is actually the work that's being done today. Many things have changed, as all of us know, since 2017. And so we've gone over this plan with that lens of ensuring that we're doing the work, where the plan is depicting the work that we're actually doing in the state of Utah. That will go before our board in October with a request for them to allow us to open that up to public comment. So in the coming days, weeks, will be an opportunity for you and your community members to review the recommended changes related to the consolidated application and give us feedback on that. So I would invite you, when that opportunity comes out, you should hear many different channels about that public engagement period, to take advantage of that. I know it might not feel like a high priority thing given all the demands of the work that you're doing, but I think it would be well worth at least sharing that information with your community and then spending a little bit of time reviewing the parts that are important to your work. One of those changes will be, recommended changes will be related to the scoring for our English language learner students and the exit criteria for them. So I think we talked about that before, just briefly. The next slide has to do with an update on information that's available now that wasn't available earlier in this fall. That your LEA SERP folders have been updated to include SGP data. Our friends from Data and Statistics will be with us later in this meeting. We have them scheduled to join us around 10:30 this morning to come back in response to the requests that were made during our August Assessment Directors meeting to provide additional support and resources and training around Tableau. So they'll come and you can ask them questions about that at that time if you have any. And then the last slide that I have is just a miscellaneous item. We've talked in here about Utah State Board of Education submitted a competitive grant for state assessment. There were several LEAs in our state who signed on as a support to that work. That was submitted back in the spring of 2022, and within the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks, they've announced the states that were awarded, or the proposals that were awarded, and Utah was not selected for that. I don't believe Utah proposal has ever been selected for that grant. I'm starting to feel a little picked on. They have 3 scores, score your proposal, and there was really one score that looked like was an outlier. So I think we had a score, the scores go up to 100, I believe, and we had a score in the 80s, a score in the upper 70s, and then we had a score in the low 50s or upper 40s, which was an outlier score. And but I let that go. We'll move forward. The proposal, though, that we created does create a framework for us to try to, again, advance work that's contained, or a recommendation that's contained in our assessment strategic plan, and that is for the State Board of Education to provide technical support and expertise to building performance-based assessment items related to Portrait of a Graduate that are difficult to measure, to deliver those in some kind of a banking system that would allow Utah's educators to utilize and use those in their classrooms. So I'm disappointed that we're not engaging in that work right now, but we've got the framework for that proposal, and we'll continue to seek funding opportunities to support that work. So as assessment director for your LEA, just keep that on your radar, that we continue to try to, we have interest and we continue to look for ways to fund that. And when we do, we'll be looking for LEA partners where we would come in, bring some expertise from our staff, also from a vendor from outside the state, and then come in and build the capacity of your educators to develop performance-based assessment items for use in their classroom around the portrait of graduate competencies. So that's exciting work. It's just delayed right now for some time until we can find additional funding. Okay, I think that is the end of my formal slides, and we'll turn the time over to Michelle Neal. Talk to us about something that is probably more time sensitive, and that is the release of the 2022 school report cards.
Yes, thank you, Darren. I'm Anne Michelle Neal, Accountability Specialist at USBE. I just want to provide you with some updates related to the school report card. It is that time of year where we look forward to the 2021-2022 school report cards. I guess what I mean is we look forward to the annual report card release. This year there are two significant updates that I'm going to talk through today that I want you to be aware of. The first is that letter grades will be published for the first time. And we've adjusted the way we are calculating growth just a bit. And so I'm going to talk through both of these things today. In general updates, we are looking and aiming toward a public release of October 3rd. You will have a period for the secure release where it's embargoed, but LEAs and schools and principals are allowed to go in and view their own data, and we'll talk about the purpose of that here. For those of you who are new, this process, I just want you to be aware so that mainly that you are going to receive two separate emails, because I get a lot of questions that say, there's no password in this email, and I always say, yes, you're right. It was sent to me email immediately following. So you will get two emails. The first one will have the secure access link and your LEA user login. That login username can be used, you are allowed to share that within your internal staff. Same username can be shared amongst others in your district office, definitely with your principals. The password comes in a separate email. I also include a lot of instructions in that email as far as the status of the school report card, and a few other things. So Kim, you can go to the next slide. Is Kim driving today? Okay. So in this secure release, I want to talk about the purpose and what your responsibilities are as the AD. So the purpose is so that you have time and that schools have time to prepare communication related to the school report card. So if you're not aware, the school report card published in the fall always reflects the data from assessment last spring. So we call it the 21-22 school report card because that is the reporting year. But we report that information to you now. So you're going to be thinking about last year and last year's summative assessment data, growth. It includes attendance information and a lot of other things. So it's a time, the secure release is a period for you to prepare communication for families and parents. What you may want to share with your community council, for example. It also provides opportunity for you to send feedback to us. if something isn't right, if some link isn't working, or something is, you have a question related to the data, this is the time for you to send that to me now, so that you can, or the secure release period is the time for you to make me aware of that so that we can make corrections before it goes public. Simultaneously, while you are doing your own data quality checks, we are also doing data quality checks on our end. We don't anticipate that there will be changes to the data itself, but if there are, layout issues or navigation issues, we continue to test during that time period as well. So it may be expected to see something shift a little bit, but your data shouldn't change. If that is the case, I will let you know. So during this time, your responsibility is to share that secure login information with internal stakeholders. It is embargoed. It can't go outside of staff in your LEA, but you can share that with other leadership, whoever you see fit and would provide valuable information. So I'll just repeat the timeline for the public release. We are aiming for October 3rd. The secure release, it's a day-by-day situation at the moment. We will send that to you likely after next Monday, sometime during the week. That week is our goal. But we absolutely want that data to be prepared and ready for you to evaluate it. So again, you can share that information with internal staff. And again, check for data quality issues, for accuracy of the information. A lot of what we see during this time is, on our profile page, the principal has changed. And for that, you need to make that correction in Cactus. When we run an update, it will reflect accurately. That is something that has to be taken care of on your side. We can't change that for you. But those are the kinds of things that you'll want to look for. Any feedback or comments, send directly to me, and my email is here on this slide and at the end of this section of the slide deck. Okay, we have another question. Is there any way that you could do the public release mid-October? We have made a commitment. The question in chat I'm seeing is related to time to share with school boards. And we have made a commitment with our leadership here at USBE, as well as we get a lot of interest from media outlets. And October 3rd is the date that we have announced to them. Darren, would you like to comment on that in any way?
Yeah, October 3rd is the date that we've published. Obviously, there can be interruptions to that at times. We hope there won't be any. It's also a little bit later than the last time we released a school report card, which would have been, I guess last year we released what we had, the data that we had.
Yeah, the last 2 years we've had waivers that applied to the school report card, and we didn't have as much data to provide for you, especially 2020, which is literally blank. So that one was easy. Okay, so if you would like to talk further about how to navigate that with your school board, we can talk. Please feel free to email me. We can schedule a call and see what will meet your needs. But we have committed to a timeline with the superintendency here at USBE. So on the next slide, we'll start talking about those two items that were at the beginning of the presentation, school letter grades. More questions. Okay. All right. So school letter grades. We have not published school letter grades in at least 4 years since this form of the school report card has been in place, and since the approval of our ESSA plan and this accountability system. excuse me, the reason for this is that each year there has been a situation where the legislature or an accountability waiver or addendum has allowed us to have flexibility around publishing letter grades. The first year, it was the first year of the system. In the second year, we had a change in assessment, which is included in statute as a year that we don't have to publish letter grades. Then we had COVID and et cetera. So this year, the legislature has not provided us with additional flexibility, so we have to return to, I think it's 53E-5-404 comes to mind, but it's Senate Bill 220 from 2017, which requires the assignment of letter grades. I can put a screenshot here on the slide for you about where that letter grade will appear. It is at the bottom of the page. After all of the information on achievement, growth, post-secondary readiness, English learning progress, etc. I view this as kind of like a funnel of information where we give the detail that funnels down to the overall letter grade. Rather than putting this at the top of the page where users might only look at that piece of their school report card and then move on. It's also displayed next to the calculation of points. So it's very easy for users to see how the letter grade relates to, or how the letter grade was derived from the points that the school earned. Okay. So for letter grades, well, that is very bright on the slide. I apologize. That did not look that yellow in my life. Okay. So each letter grade has a descriptor. Exemplary, commendable, typical, developing, and critical needs is that last category because I know you can't see it here. It's described in detail in Appendix H in the Accountability Technical Manual. Appendix H is a memo from the 2016-2017 standard setting process that we did to determine the threshold scores. They're also on page 25 of the Accountability Technical Manual. A quick note about the Accountability Technical Manual, it has been updated for 2022-2023. The link to the technical manual has not changed, so if it is bookmarked anywhere, if you've shared it with anybody, that link will still function fine, thanks to Emily's genius, and that's a very helpful thing. And for my own sanity, and maybe for yours, a long time ago we had a red cover, then we had a blue cover, and this one is kind of like a teal and then with gold. So that's a very quick way to tell if you are looking at the most current version of the Accountability Technical Manual. All right. Any questions up to this point?
So for the recording, will you read the question?
Okay. Yes. Well,
For
even
the people in the room who can't see the chat.
sure. So this is a tough question, and I want to acknowledge that. So what you were saying is that because these timings of the release only impact every district in the state and not USB, we will continue with the current schedule. I understand that it may present challenges. Possible solutions, I think, I would like to understand more. Are you wanting to make sure that the school board does not see the public release before you have a chance to discuss it with them? Or I'd like to better understand the concern and maybe bring in Aaron's input on that one. If it's okay, we'll move on. Aaron, are you okay?
Yeah, and
We'll discuss that.
I've let Seth know to call me if you'd like to talk to me about the details of the concern and how delaying the school report card release would address those. So
Okay.
Put my Bob's phone number in there after the meeting's over. this afternoon to be available.
Great. Thank you. It's just, I don't have an answer for you off the top of my head right this moment. That changing the release schedule is something that we have control over to do at a whim, since it involves our IT department, our data and statistics department, and Deputy Superintendent Scott Jones' approval, et cetera. So, all right, let's talk about growth for 2022. Based on the feedback from TAC and APAC last spring, and we included in our addendum for the 2022 COVID federal addendum, which allowed us to make changes to the school to our ESSA plan that were needed related to COVID-19. We included in that addendum that was approved in March, maybe April. The addendum is linked there. That we would like to change the calculation of growth. What we've done here is we have removed the AGP or student growth targets from the calculation. State statute requires that we assign a point weight, but here we just have student SGP ranges and then the growth point weight that will be assigned to each of those ranges. The calculation is still the same. We will sum those weights for all students and all subjects, and then divide by the total number of scores. You multiply that by the 56 points possible, and you end up with the score for growth. But it's just important to point out that growth this year will not be that matrix of did the student meet their growth target, here's their point weight. If they did not meet, then they have a different assigned weight. We're using SGP ranges only. So it is a different calculation than we did in 2018, 2019, which was the last time that we did a growth calculation and assigned points for growth. So like I mentioned, points are still indexed. The calculation is the same. It's just we are indexing points differently and not using AGP in the growth calculation. This is on page 17 of the Accountability Technical Manual. There is a section under the description of growth that says 2021, 2022, and this just describes this exact information that I've shared with you, that for this year, we're using AGP only. As Darren was talking about our ESSA amendment, and our Utah Consolidated Application, which you will see for public comment. We are hopeful to move forward with this approach permanently. The student SGP ranges, I think, will be quantiles, is what we are proposing, rather than what we see here. But we're looking and seeking to make this change permanent, removing AGP from growth in the calculation for accountability. That should make growth much easier to talk about with your stakeholders, with teachers, because it can be directly related to student growth percentiles. Just one benefit. So finally, I'll talk a bit about the self-reported indicators that Darren mentioned in his introduction. This is straight out of some of the information that you'll be receiving when the secure release is sent to you, but also from statute. That self-reported indicators provide an opportunity for you to share things about your school that are not included in the accountability system. We have seen mixed levels of fidelity in reporting self-reported indicators. You have or schools, I should say, every school and each LEA has complete flexibility to upload and enter information that will appear to the public on their school report card. For LEAs, this could be your vision and mission. You can decide. for the time being, we have, and for the last several years, we've had very broad degrees of flexibility with what can be published here. There's also the opportunity for you to put a PDF file attached to that. So if the description that is displayed is not enough room, you can attach your entire PBIS school-wide behavior expectations if that is something that is important to you. You can really discuss anything within some set categories. And go ahead to the next slide. I'll say more about this. The legislation says that a school can include up to 2 self-reported indicators. It's not required. It is not scored, but you can include 1 or 2 if you choose to that are approved for the board for inclusion, and may include process or input indicators. So these are things by process and input that maybe not assessment related things, school activities. For the board approved list, I relied on John Hattie's Visible Learning and his 6 categories of influence, I call them. And so you just have to make a connection between your self-reported indicator to one of these categories. Is it a school-wide factor, student, teacher, instructional, parent-family engagement, and equitable educational opportunities? I have yet to see something that can't be tied to one of these broad areas. So again, no points are associated with this, and the window for this is currently open. Can we include links to documents and reports? Yes, you can. There is the process for this for self-reported indicators and the upload is attached to the documents in today's meeting. There's an instruction guide for self-reported indicators. It has all the information for assigning roles if they need to be assigned, but also the process for uploading them through the data gateway and for attaching documents. They have to be in PDF format, but you have the choice of what you want to present to your audience. When does the self-reported indicators window close is the next question. Currently, I have it set up to close on December 20th. We want to provide enough time for LEAs to be able, LEAs and schools to be able to take advantage of this opportunity, but also there need to put some limits around it so that folks are motivated to upload those things. I have control over when that window opens and closes. If you have any issues, please contact me. I can open a window for somebody if we need exceptions. I have been granted that authority finally. So, okay, the next one. So any questions? I think I've been answering questions throughout, but my email is here on the slide. And we look forward to sharing the school report card with you for the first time in its entirety in several years. So it's definitely an exciting time for me and my team. Exciting is the word I will choose.
Anxiety producing might be the word for some in the field.
Okay.
Before we move on, though, I've just been thinking about Seth's concerns that have been shared, and then another comment in the chat. Before we move on, I'm interested to know if the concern is more about October 3rd, or if the concern is more about adequate time between the private and public release date. If you have feelings about that, if you're in the room, go ahead and address that. If you're out in a remote setting, you can put that into the chat.
That was the one concern I had, is where we don't know for sure how soon it's going to be released. And I'm new, so I won't say, but in my mind, if I have 2 full weeks, so we got it Monday or Tuesday of next week, I think that's probably going to be okay. But if it's late next week and I've only got a week, that becomes a little bit more concerning in my mind.
Okay. And I see, Blake, also that's, your comment was earlier, that's good clarification. It's the time between the private and the public release. Okay. Yeah, because we're currently, I know Michelle's been hesitant to say it, but we're currently scheduled for private release 2 weeks before the public release. And it sounds like there might be some challenges that we're still trying to overcome for that. In that case, it's easier for me to defend and to go to our leadership to say we need to delay the public release to give adequate time between the two. I know there's been at least 1 year where there was only 1 week between the public and the private release, but that does create tension in your environments that we don't want to create if we can avoid that. Okay. Thank you.
I'll also share that the pressure to meet the 2-week secure release deadline has happened every year. This is not uncommon, and we have been able to meet those deadlines. I personally can't load data myself. I rely on others. And so that's where I am hesitant to make promises or give absolute about when something will occur because it relies so heavily on my colleagues here.
We'll certainly keep you posted with immediate communication about that, and if that gets delayed, I'll take that to our leadership here with the request to delay the public release. We'll just deal with the communication piece about that on our side. Thank you.
Thank you, and before we move on, I just want to say thank you. I'm always impressed at AD's engagement with the school report card, with the thoughtful feedback that I receive from you, and with your patience with the process. And please don't hesitate to contact me with questions.
Okay, for those of you who haven't submitted your testing plan, you have until midnight today to be on time.
It's an action item.
Yeah, this is a definite action item, which is why I put the little sticky note about do it now if you haven't done it. And Amy, I want to give a shout out to Amy Magruder, who is actually monitoring the Qualtrics survey. So if you notice when you email me, I ask Amy, can you provide a copy? Don't forget to print your own copies when you get your report done, and put it somewhere where you're going to remember where it is. You can print it and save it as a PDF and put it, because we do get questions throughout the year about your testing plan. So just to remember that they are due by midnight today. And then you'll be getting emails from me. I'm always nice. Monday, I'll start sending out saying, hello. So the deadline is today. The survey will close at midnight tonight. And then if you haven't submitted it yet Monday, start expecting to get really nice, gentle reminder emails from me about, hello, you're out of compliance. So just be ready for that. Another thing to remind, I just wanted to give you a heads up, and that is that the Spanish version of the parental exclusion form is now posted on the USB website as well. It's been there for about a week or so. We had to get it we have to pay our translator to get it translated, but they are there, they are updated, they're ready to go. And so if anybody needs them, they're available there. A quick reminder to everyone, we do have new people, and believe it or not, we've already had 2 alert papers this year already. We get alerted from Cambian, sometimes from DRC for WIDA. If students type concerning information, topics, words in any place where they can type into the system. In Cambian, that means the global notes. It means if they're doing a benchmark writing test. It means if they're doing a summative writing test. Whenever that happens, it triggers what we call an alert. And I'm immediately notified. As soon as it triggers with CAI, they send me an email and say, hey, there's been some concern. I log in. I find out who it is. I will send an immediate email to you. Emily will be sending the actual information to you via Secure Move It. Your responsibility is to immediately address the situation by either notifying a school administrator, making sure that whatever the situation that's being mentioned in that alert gets addressed, and then you just need to notify me that you have addressed it. And that includes more than just saying, I've let people know. Like, I need to know that this, I don't have to know the details, but I need to know that a school administrator has been notified, the student, and parents were notified, whatever that is. This is actual law of what you have. And so this year I thought I'll stick that in just as a reminder to everybody of the urgency of this. And that includes notifying me back. So it needs to be taken care of. Remember, we take this, and I do know that we see some that seem like students probably are just messing around, but we find every single year, we had over 200 alert papers last year. It's the most ever, and every year it gets more. I was so shocked to get them. Literally, schools started, and the 2 schools that had alert papers within 2 weeks of school opening. So just so you're aware, they are coming and you will see them. So I don't want to underplay I do get that sometimes it's annoying. And by the way, people always ask me, should we warn the kids? Like, they shouldn't type stuff in there. Please don't do that, because we want to, we have found some really horrific situations because kids have literally reached out and said, if anyone is listening to this, I need help. And the law has been involved. I mean, we are talking about the fact that this is a channel for students. And so when people say, oh, we should probably just tell them don't mess around, let them mess around, because there aren't that many that you have to deal with. We know it's irritating, but it's not that many. So one other quick reminder, I have been sending email reminders. In the last 2 years, because of the switch to one roster and stuff, you have to go in and manually reset your Utah Compose upload. Pretty much everyone's done it. The list, I checked it yesterday right at the end of the day, and I think I still have about 20 LEAs who haven't gone in and reset. You just want to make sure that you just go in and push that, because if you don't reset it in your Utrex Upload and Data Gateway, the new courses and students won't load to Utah Compose, and so teachers will go in and they only see last year's data. If they're brand new teachers, they won't see any of their students yet, and it's really frustrating to everyone. So if you just go in, you literally have to go in and go click and then it's taken care of. And I haven't been sending reminder emails to everyone as I've noticed that they need to be reset. I've been checking it pretty much every day. I check it 2 or 3 times just to double check because I do get frustrated emails from teachers going, I still can't use it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not my fault. So, and I hate saying that. So, and now it's Maureen.
I just have a few quick reminders about rostering or your assessments. If you have a new student, you've entered into your SIS and he or she or they have no errors whatsoever, it's still going to take about 48 hours for that student to show up in any assessment. So you have to have a little patience there. If you do have errors, just a reminder on that Utrex overview page, you can check your fatal errors, your warnings, just to see if there's an issue there. If you have any questions, please go ahead and get in touch with me. I'm here for you. Just another reminder, please don't share any PII, student PII in emails. You send me their SSID, I can figure out all the rest from there. So just SSID and any emails is just fine.
And you might want to watch when you guys are forwarding threads to us, because teachers sometimes will, as you know, send you like the information, and even though everybody's been doing this, because then the thread keeps carrying on and we have to go back. I go back and redact. Maureen and I go back and redact lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of PII. So just a quick reminder about that to let teachers know too. Nobody wants to get in trouble for that. So.
Alrighty, and then just here, your most likely suspects if a student isn't rostering. If you look at the date of your last submission, it may have happened after we did a nightly roster for an attempt for an assessment, so maybe just need to wait another day. Make sure your courses have the correct core codes. We do have the link here to the core codes list. You can see which which courses correspond with which assessments. School entry date and school exit dates, course entry dates, course exit dates. Those are always likely suspects. And in ADM, if you aren't seeing any of your students rostered, it could be because you haven't set up your testing calendar yet in ADM. You are responsible for that, and you won't see any students for this year until that happens. Always, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me and I will help you any problems you might be having.
We're about 10 minutes ahead of schedule for the Tableau. Do you want me to just move on?
Let's move on.
Okay.
When you come down, we'll jump back.
We're not going to have a break, so we'll have a break after Tableau because, you know, pretty much our brains will be full and we'll need it then. So go ahead, Elise.
All right, so just a heads up here with UTIPS. Our training was yesterday. Thank you for those of you who attended. If you were unable to, we will get the recording posted onto YouTube, and I'll include the link in the AD memo so that you can view it or share it as needed. Next slide. For Apple, that training is this afternoon at 2 o'clock. It will be recorded as well, so for those of you who administer Apple tests for the dual language immersion program, that is for you. So come join us this afternoon. As a heads up with Apple, the welcome letter will be sent to you as ADs as well as teachers who are in the DLI program on October 3rd. Again, this is for DLI schools only. I know that there are many schools who administer the Apple test for other foreign language courses. This is only for those that are dual immersion programs. For that, our Apple testing window is October 17th through December 2nd. So kind of make a note of that. Next slide.
Elise, did you want to talk about waiting to the last minute?
Oh, we can do that for sure. We're going to do that in our training this afternoon as well. But the earlier the better, friends, because if you wait until those last few days, you run the risk of not being able to have a student retest if there was an unrateable test, and you don't have the option of appealing a test score. So the earlier the window, the better, okay? For RISE, we will be having that training next Thursday, September 22nd. The first hour will be a more high-level overview, more basic. So if you're new or if you just want a refresher, that's a great one to attend. And then from 10 a.m. to noon, it will be more comprehensive. Anyone is welcome to attend, but at the same time, it will be recorded if the time frame does not work, and it can be posted on the YouTube channel so you can watch it later at your convenience. Keep.
So I'm going to talk about PEEP and KEEP. Say Teresa couldn't be here. So with both, if you have to administer or are planning to administer PEEP, it's the same entry date as KEEP. The data has to be entered into the data gateway by September 30th. Remember, those windows were 3 weeks before school for KEEP, 3 weeks after school, and it's 4 weeks before and 4 weeks after for PEEP. And then the other requirement is that you need to notify parents with any of the data reports after the fact. So making sure that you keep that in mind after you administer either of those assessments. And I'll throw a plug. Don't forget alternate assessments for those kiddos, please. Thank you, Tracy. And that data would be entered into the data gateway as well. There's the tab for the alternate assessment there. Okay, so one of the things that the board has created a task force looking at reporting requirements and how we can reduce reporting requirements for the LEAs. There was a survey specifically about the OEK and full day kindergarten funding and the reporting that's required with that. There were either 6 or 78 responses to that survey. And actually there was a pretty strong theme in the survey that people took. stating that they would prefer to give Acadience reading and math instead of the KEEP assessment. If we're required to administer a kindergarten assessment, at the state we have 91% of the LEAs administer Acadience reading already. Last year we had about 69% administer Acadience math. So before we make a final recommendation to the board, this wouldn't be happening this year and possibly not even next year. So there would be rule changes and code changes that would be required. But we wanted to get your input before we went forward and recommended that to the board about changing the required assessment for kindergarten. So we're interested in your feedback as to, and it says which assessment would you prefer to give. I should mention as a caveat, as your required assessment. So there would still be a required assessment in kindergarten. The question is, which would you prefer? So the discussion was around if you'd prefer to keep KEEP as the required assessment in kindergarten, if you would prefer to move to Acadience reading and Acadience math as a required assessment in kindergarten, but then KEEP would not be required, or if your choice would be to have the LEA have a choice whether you administer KEEP or Acadience, but you'd have to administer one or the other. Now, the caveat with the LEA choice one, if your LEA chooses to do that, we wouldn't have state level data that you could compare to. So if that's important to you, the LEA choice would not have that option. So on the next slide, and if you're in the Nearpod, this is really where we really are looking forward to hearing from you. Would your LEA prefer to keep KEEP as the required kindergarten assessment, to move and instead have Acadience reading and Acadience math as the required assessment, or to have an LEA choice between one or the other of those two? You would still be required to administer assessments with any of these in kindergarten. And it wouldn't prevent you from administering KEEP or Acadience unless no one chooses KEEP, and then we likely wouldn't roster that in Data Gateway. But
We're going to give you we only have about 58 people logged into the Nearpod, and the only way we can collect this data is if you log into the Nearpod and take the survey, which I'm about to click on. So I'm going to give it a second because we timed the survey to give you about a minute to answer. So we're hoping to see more people log into the Nearpod so that we can get this really accurate, important data. And I don't know how many people are logged on because I'm only on one screen today. So how many people are logged
A lot of people are saying they want time to talk to their staff.
okay,
I don't know.
so time to get feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, I
from-
think it's really
might be a
important,
better-
especially to talk to your experts in your.
Yeah,
LEA.
and Sarah will be asking the literacy directors the same question tomorrow. So that's good to know that the literacy directors will have the exact same question to them tomorrow as well. I wonder if maybe we send out a survey from the task force was really hesitant to send another survey widely because they feel people are very surveyed out. So we were going to maybe have a discussion, but I understand people wanting to talk to teams and people who administer the assessment and know the data and work with the data. So that makes sense. And maybe, Darren, we can put together a Google survey, or do we want to just have a discussion?
I wonder, because you know that your literacy directors are going to be surveyed as well, that's probably the people that our assessment directors are saying I need to go talk to. As long as we're clear that the information we present back is through the lens of the assessment directors. Now, you could still have concerns about whether you're aligned in your thinking, but I don't know that the committee is that concerned about that. They'll act however, the board will act however they choose to, but I do think there will be some action related to this kindergarten assessment based on the board's overall goal to reduce burdens on the LEAs, and the fact that we have some legislative energy behind that very thing. So even though these are in state statute, it's likely there'll be some changes around that. Representative Pulsper is on the committee. She's the one who ran House Bill 300 and the two other bills to reduce her burdens on LEAs. So I don't know if that helps you feel more comfortable responding to the survey, knowing that your literacy directors are going to be surveyed, and that our report back would just be through the lens of the assessment directors, which you view assessments probably a little differently than your literacy directors do. So your lens could be the difficulty in administering it, the value of reporting the data out on a statewide comparison basis. So I don't know if that if that reduces the feelings of resistance about responding to the survey today. Again, realizing it's non-binding, it's just information gathering. And the committee does feel strong about us not sending out a survey. So doing it in the meeting was more acceptable.
And it really is, like Darren said, this was more just feedback gathering, not a final decision, but more of we were surprised by the survey results from the original survey, because 4 years ago when we asked this, that was not the feedback from people. They did not want to have Acadians reading as the required assessment, and we also didn't have Acadians math at the time.
Would you change the window then for the assessment? Because currently we use Keep Assessment Early to use as one of the indicator for our placement into the full day, the optional extended kindergarten. So I don't know how that will play into.
Yeah, and that's a really good question about with the timeline change or the window change for administration for Acadians reading versus Keep, which right now the assessment won't let us, but like they're very specific in their technical manual about when to test, and it's like after the first 10 days of school is technically what they say in their materials. So that's a good point. If you're using the information to place students in classes, that likely would not be available with Acadians reading or math.
Probably even for progress monitoring, right? If an LA said, let's do progress monitoring for placement decisions,
I mean,
that's still likely not available.
right, because we wouldn't have rostering available until after school starts. And so there's a possibility of using paper pencil materials with progress monitoring before school starts, and then just not having that data entered into the system, just knowing the composite score.
You would still have, because right now the preschool entry exit profile, the P, which uses the exit for that is the kindergarten entry, is my
Correct. Yep. The PEEP exit is the same as the
So those
kindergarten.
resources would still be available for an LEA to administer the KEEP entry test. It just wouldn't be something that would be housed in, potentially wouldn't be something that's housed in a student information system.
Right. And then you may end up double testing then, and your time spent on testing more, because if you're using
For
KEEP
placement.
to place and then still administering Acadians reading.
You would
And math.
eliminate the exit on Keep, and so that would potentially help. But you might still,
At the beginning of the year,
beginning
May.
of the year, you would still use Keep to some decisions.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit different information, like especially with KEEP exit, where there's reading connected text and there's writing and there's math story problems that are not part of Acadians. But it's whether you choose to gather that information in different ways, and the actual time for administration is less. Those are considerations.
There's some questions in the chat.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed since KEEP was introduced. Again, we have Cadence Math now, which again, whether you support that or not, there's a range of responses to that, but that's available for kindergarten teachers, and then the Acadians reading is much wider, used in a much wider range of schools are using that now. They have different purposes as well.
So Brad, the question about you can't administer, it's their best practice. So it says up to 10 days after school, but I can find it in the test administration manual and send that to you, Brad. Let's see. So the straw poll now may not reflect the upper leadership, so people are still kind of pushing to
And not
wait and get some
respond.
feedback.
Okay.
We have 70 people in an earpod, so.
Yeah, so we're at a spot we can either just go forward, collect what we get, put a caveat that we collected this from assessment directors who were comfortable enough to respond, but that we received concerns that many of them wanted to talk to their leadership teams before responding. When did we commit to getting this information back to the committee?
We told Greg that we had meetings this week and we would get it to him, but he doesn't have a specific deadline. So I think if we can send out another survey in the memo next week and maybe even give until the end of the week next week to collect responses, I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay. Well, let's just do that. Then let's not collect anything today. And so we'll go through the poll here jump through it, and then we'll collect it in some other way. If it's not prohibitive for us to collect it in October's AD meeting, we'll just do it during then. But if Greg tells us he needs that earlier for a report to the board, then let's do it in a week in our next memo.
Okay. And then I know there was another comment about asking, please not to share this with literacy directors. I can talk with Sarah and just give her a heads up about the general feeling in here. Again, knowing that this is general feedback, not any final decision making. I can let her know that that's our plan. The problem is the literacy directors only meet quarterly. They don't meet monthly, and so she won't have another chance to talk with literacy directors in October. So they may move forward with their information.
Okay. Well, we can offer you assurance that we'll collect your feedback either in an upcoming AD memo with a link to a short survey or in the October AD meeting through the tool that we've created for today.
Let's just do Acadian's reading.
Okay.
So we can go back.
Right. All right. Let's jump into Acadian's reading. So just reminders, we're right in the middle of the test administration window for Acadian's reading and Acadian's math. The window for VOY goes through September 30th. For Acadian's reading data, we checked yesterday, and for our first and third grade, we're a little over 80% of data collected at this point in the year. So we're moving right along. If you don't have any information, if you're at 0% of data entered into the systems, you'll be hearing from us next week, just reminding and saying, hey, how are things going? Let's make sure if there's any way we can support you, let us know. And then with Acadian's math, it's a little bit different because the data entry window is not until October 30th. So with most people being on ADM, there's some data in the system, but we won't be sending out those reminders about data entry until October. So just making sure you are administering and getting through the administration before September 30th. And if you have questions or issues with administration of either Acadian's reading or Acadian's math, please reach out. Math to either Jared or Whitney, and Acadian's reading to Teresa. We're happy to help you figure out what we can do to support. The other part of that slide was just remembering to enter your SIS codes, the special codes into your SIS systems. For math, those should be in there. For Acadian's reading, that it's been in there for a while. So math should be in your SIS systems this year, and just that reminder about before September 30th, entering that data. And then the final reminder with Acadian's reading was to make sure the parent notification letters are also sent. And there's deadlines on those. Those are the same as the data entry dates. So by October 30th, making sure you've sent those. I know we've had questions in the past with people who their parent-teacher conferences are like the first week of November, and they prefer to talk with parents in person. If that's your case and it's after October 30th, please just reach out to us, and we'll most likely say that that's fine. Go ahead and do that, but just let us know.
Sorry, can I
Yes,
just
Katina.
confirm what you said? So our parent teacher conference is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 1st of November. So we should wait till then or mail them out?
You don't have to. You can mail them out,
Oh.
but if some people would like to prefer to talk to the parents in person, and when they have a parent-teacher conference, that's a nice time. But it also is way later than you've actually administered the assessment. So they're, yeah.
We
That's
do
the
mail it
question
out,
passed.
and then at parent teacher conferences, teachers have copies to go over. But I just did
That's
that.
great. Okay, there are links in the slides to preliminary exit data. We say preliminary just because we're making sure we've got a Tableau report to share, and we want to make sure everything's similar, not similar, the same data is in both. So it's preliminary, but really should not change at this point. But this is for Acadian's reading data. It comes from end of year of 2022, but there's 3 years worth of data in the files. You can see there's LEA level and state level files for reading data. On the next slide, it kind of walks through how you can filter through, especially the LEA level file, if you want to just look for your LEA, or if you're looking for specific years or other LEAs that you'd like to compare how your LEA is doing against. This file shows you how to sort through that data.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I think that was it.
Too fast.
And then finally, we do have some data analysis trainings coming up. We've heard from the field in the past, we've typically waited until October to do our data analysis trainings, knowing that people have until October 30th to enter data, but we're trying to do them a little bit earlier so they're a little bit closer to when you've actually administered the assessment. So we do have options. We're actually combining the reading and math data analysis trainings because the data that you'll be analyzing is actually really similar. So there is school leader sessions. Both of these types of trainings are virtual. The dates and the course codes for the MIDAS course codes to register are there. There's 2 different dates for school leaders to go through these Acadience reading and Acadience math data analysis trainings. They're a few hours. They're 2-hour trainings for school leaders. And then we also have trainings for teachers. There's 3 different sessions there that are 3 hours long. And then there's a note there about there's a double training on the 28th, a morning and an afternoon session. Plan that on purpose, knowing that you may have subs for those sessions and you could use 1 sub for 2 different teachers. So if you would like teachers or coaches or leaders to attend, there's information for MIDAS course numbers. And if you have questions about those, please reach out to either Jared or Teresa, or you can ask now if you have questions.
Are these in person or Zoom?
These are virtual, yeah, Zoom. And that's Tracy.
Okay, Acadience Math Alternate Assessment. I have been getting bombarded with phone calls, emails from teachers, coordinators, like across charter schools, districts. What are we doing for the alternate math Acadience assessment? Please, please, please make sure you get this down to your teachers. We had it in the first AD meeting. We've put it in multiple AD memos. It's been blasted to SPED directors. I really rely on you guys to really help make sure this gets pushed down to teachers. So September 30th, right? They've got a couple more weeks to get this administered and they're required to participate. I did receive a phone call. There was some confusion around the word pilot. We are calling this year a pilot year, as in we do want feedback from teachers. We will have a survey hopefully ready for your teachers for the middle of the year administration so that we can make changes if needed. So that's why it's called the pilot year. So just because we're saying pilot does not mean that it's not required. Does that make sense? So it is required. Please give it to your teachers. They must administer it. Okay, and then Amy attached all those rubrics again. I am hopefully going to get them posted on the web in the next couple weeks, but it takes a minute to get web stuff going. So, okay, that was my plug. Thank you.
Tracy, the question about where do we enter this course?
Oh, so the scores will get entered into your SIS system just like you do with the Acadience reading. Your SIS system should have built out, I believe it is, what is it called? Math something. It's in the scoring guide. So there should be a section, you'll have the reading grade level and then the math. You'll see the math assessment where you plug in that AYAN based upon the scoring rubric in your SIS system. Does that make sense?
Great, let's take 5 minutes so we can get David set up to share. So at 10:15, we'll reconvene together. In the meantime, we'll get our colleagues from data statistics ready to go. Okay, well, again, I want to express an appreciation to our colleagues, data statistics. David and Aaron have taken their time to join us today. As I mentioned earlier, they're going to provide us some information about the Tableau, as well as talk about the training plans that they can put together based on the request from our assessment directors in our last meeting. So, David, am I turning the time over to you or to Aaron? Aaron? Now, the mic on the ceiling is what we're using. As long as you talk loudly or clearly, they'll pick you up because the audio here is really good.
All right. I hope everyone can hear me. Awesome. Okay, here we go. So thank you for letting us come back and talk with you. For us, David and myself, and the rest of Data Statistics, this is what we do. It's lots of fun. And we love interacting with you guys, talking about this information. So just kind of talking about things we have there. We put out a survey of things that you need to know, resources for learning Tableau, current reports and where to find them, how to access the reports, some basic Tableau dashboard navigation, and scheduled training learning progression we'll be working through. So that's what we're going to talk about. So there were a total of 84 response on their surveys. 79 responded, stated that they either a novice or beginning when it came to visualizing data using Tableau, which means you have to speak loudly so they can all hear this. Someone said in the room sitting next to me, we don't know what we're doing. Well, you know what you're doing, you just don't know how to do it in the new tool. So let's just clarify. Or we can also read it as, we would like to have basic training, don't throw me into the advanced stuff. Does that work? I'm teasing you. I apologize if I made you feel bad. Okay, next slide. So here, I don't know if we gave you this PowerPoint. We'll give you the PowerPoint and Amy or someone will send this out. I'm looking at them. Sorry, we're slackers. These are a number of references or websites that you can go and learn how to use Tableau. We use these. We don't have, so Pluralsight is a paid subscription. Some of you have it, some of you don't. I don't know what you guys have access to. My team really likes data, what's it called? Data Camp, which is another, it's paid for one. It's not too expensive, but just, we don't have it up there. But these are just some places that you can go and learn Tableau and use it. So let me just add, our experience with training ourselves and with other staff here at USPE and such is you have to be in this at least once a week for it to retain in your head. If you look at something, you get trained on it, and then you don't touch that thing again for 6 months, you're going to come back at 6 months and say, oh yeah, I remember how, whoa, I don't remember how to do anything here. And that's just the common experience. So if you want to dig into this and learn this, you do have to spend some time actually logging into the server or your own server, whatever it is, and just spend the time working on it. It's with everything else. If you're way too busy to do that, totally understand. That's why we are building dashboards to make it easier for you to navigate and access the information. But the concept of you are what we're calling power users is that you are power users. The idea is you want to ask the deeper dive questions. I want to get into this stuff that is not in the dashboard. Give you an example. I was working with Granite School District. We were looking at the EL data. They're like, don't give me Tableau. They didn't say that. Here's some files. I sent them a file. You've got a team of, I don't know how many you've got.
I have three data analysts, yeah.
3 data analysts. Granite's a little bit bigger. They've got the staff to go in and dig into the information. We've had a couple calls back and forth. They question me, hey, why is this happening? What's going on over here? We review it. We make corrections to the stuff, but it's a deeper dive experience. And how many hours do you think we were together, John, with this, just that one?
Just that one, a couple,
A couple hours just delving into it. And that wasn't Tableau. Could I have answered this in Tableau? It would take me a while. But just let you know, the idea is deeper questions. How do I get to them? This is the tool that we are putting in front of you that can help answer these questions. Okay, next slide. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Okay, current reports. If you go to the data gateway, you click on it. Oh, he's going to go that one. Okay, so what's that? He changed his data gateway. You've all been there. Inside of this, go ahead and click on compare schools. 2022 is there if you haven't already been in there. So it's there, growth data and percent proficient, it's all there. Again, the way this works, very simply, you go in, you select the year that you want to look at, and you start typing the name, and you'll get a list that pops up. It's going to tell you what district it's in. You select the one that you're interested in. Go ahead, David, pick whatever one you're interested in. That repopulates. Again, this is using the Gowers coefficient of similarity algorithm to find schools like you. When I say you, like whichever one you selected. What you have inside of there are results for RISE and Utah Aspire Plus. We are working on development plans to put inside of their graduation comparisons, Acadians comparisons, and WIDA comparisons. It's not done, but we are in that development stage. So just know that that is coming. Be basically like you click on a tab on top and you flip over to the new one, you select it, and off you go. Okay, so there's that report. Go ahead, go back.
So Aaron, when you say there's development on that, is that something for next year's release, or is it something you expect will be updated between now and next year?
Between now and next year. Yeah, great question. When's it coming? You need to stop going to meetings so we can get things done is the answer for that. You know, that one, that's my complaint. Okay, student proficiency. Did you already talk about that one, Darren?
No, we haven't talked about it here in this group.
Can I?
Yep.
Okay, let's click on student proficiency. You will notice it says 2020, 2021. I've had lots of phone calls either from you or from your principals or your coaches, whatever, saying, when is this going to be updated? Last week. The data are all ready to go. There is one error when you get down to that teacher report. When I say one error, the filter between current year, prior year, and linked, only one is working right now, and so the IT team is debugging that. We're not going to release that until it works. Now, truthfully, I could switch it over right now and say, there we go, go get it, but you're going to run into the error. It doesn't error, it just doesn't bring any results back. So just letting you know, it was supposed to be ready Monday. We're still trying to get there. So yes, it's coming really, really soon. We were hopeful it was last night to happen. As soon as we get that error fixed, we're just going to put it over and Darren or Amy or someone will say, okay, it's up. And we'll send that information out. So just know that that's where we're at. Anything else you want to add, Darren?
No, thank you.
Okay, it's coming along. So student growth. We're going to talk about this one in a moment. Go ahead and click on it, David. So you're just like, there's nothing there. We're going to show you some access to some stuff right now. It will be there soon. Okay, cool. But we'll show you how to get to it today. ACT, it's there. 2020. No, it's not there. We're working on the update. It'll happen fairly soon. It just need to be repointed, doesn't it? Or
the data needs to be refreshed.
okay, that one won't take very long. We just haven't got to it, so it's coming. All right, next one. Utah Aspire Plus, it's there. Some of you have already been there. I've talked to a number of you. There's Utah Aspire Plus. Okay, next one. Early college. Go ahead and click on it. There is a new early college one available for those who are involved with this. That will, unless you've changed it, nope, you haven't. This will also be updated, but those who are dealing with it already have access to that. So it's basically, it's just early college groups, the curriculum directors, they've already been in there looking at it.
It's behind, Aaron, if I'm correct, that's behind the login because it's got PII information.
There's both.
Oh, okay.
There's one that's behind the login, and there's also one that's going to be public. We'll be putting in there that has the insights filters on it. So, right, David? Then to speak. He's like, he's not throwing stuff at me, so I must be okay still. All right, moving on. And the school climate survey dashboard doesn't work. Don't go there. We're working on that one. Graduation rate, that will be updated in November. I think most of you deal with graduation rate. I think you understand you have until September 30th to get that information corrected, updated, submitted, so it goes in the October one. We get it, we run it again. check for everything, and then usually takes us the month of October to get everything done. And then we start working on the release. Just know that's when that one's going to be updated. Right now, that early learning, question?
No, and this is Callista. They have until the submission deadline to send S1X updates, which is October 7th. And then they have until September 23rd to send historical update requests.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great reminder for those who are working with that. If that is gibberish, what she just said, you're okay. If you understand exactly what she meant, remember those dates because they're kind of important. Okay? And then the early learning right now, that's how you get into KEEP. I think, well, yeah, early literacy components. There will be a dashboard that's already created coming inside of there, which will be added as another line. So it'll be on the front page that will have the literacy and the numeracy data. The report's actually already created and it is publicly available. So let's go to the other place. So on the he's logging in, and the URL is available. So these reports are publicly available. We're giving you the login so you can go here directly if you want. Student growth, which I said is coming, it's right there. We have the compare schools is also inside of here. What this is the actual, this is one of the servers that we're leveraging and utilizing. So the data is up there. Here's student growth. We're going to come back to this one. Just know it is there and available for you. The Acadians report, scroll up. Is that the new college course one? Is that hidden? Okay, it will be.
It'll update on the cable.
Okay. We will be updating stuff here. When they update on the data gateway, they'll update. So here's just letting you know this is some components you can go look at here too. This is a little bit harder to remember. Data gateway is easier. It just takes us a little bit more collaboration with the IT team to make sure everything's linked and working correctly. So
Aaron, you got a request for the link to the Tableau public.
David, you want to show it back? Let's go back to your PowerPoint. So there's the link. Again, we'll be sending that out.
Riley typed it in.
Yes, and Aaron, if you're okay, you'll share these slides with us
Oh,
after this meeting, and then
yeah.
we'll send that out to our AD listserv, slides that you prepared for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. The other one, I'm not going to have David click on it yet. I mean, he could, but that's the Tableau server that you guys need to log into. So those are the three sites that we're giving you. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Next slide, then. Okay. Basic Tableau dashboard creation we're going to practice. So I gave you kind of a heads up. Say, hey, look, here's growth data. But before we go there and I let you go, I want to step you through the process of actually how to build a visualization so you can analyze information and look at it differently. So that's what we're going to do. This is, okay, this is a hybrid meeting. You can sit here and just watch and absorb, or you can log in and try it yourself. So if you want to log in, David, go ahead, go to the website. He's going to go to the tab. This is tableau.schools.utah.gov. Some of you are really excited to be in there. Others like, yeah, I'll just go watch. It's okay.
What's the website?
Tableau. Schools.utah.gov. And I can only go by what I'm seeing in the room, or if someone says online, wait, just kind of looking around the room. What's it say? Well, that's schools. Should we Chrome? We're using Chrome right now. Yeah, Chrome. Should work. You get to watch. Is anyone not getting in there? In this room or online? Who's doing the chat? Is that you?
am.
Can you just type that in the chat, the reference? If you tableau.schools.utah.gov, the actual server, so they can use it if they need it. Okay. We are going to go into the surf.
Having trouble getting in.
Yeah, some people are like, you're gonna slam against the security, which is a good thing. Except for when you want to get into it, then it's a pain. Right? And we'll help you. So again, if you're running against the security wall, you'll need to contact David or myself or, who's our backup? David or myself right now. Send an email, we'll help you get it in. Okay. So if you can't get in, we're not going to stop right now. But with that, we're going to click on Explore. Inside of Explore, you should see some folders. One of those folders is going to be LEA folder. Double click on that. You're going to open it up. There's a surf files. Click on the surf files. Now, the top, again, this is what we shared last time, is, hey, I want to download these Excel spreadsheets. That's how you just kind of click on those. Those are pre-built reports. We are going deeper into that. We're going to the more complex, if you will, stuff. So David's going to scroll up on the slide until he finds student tests. And it's going to say RISE, UA plus, and then ... He's going to open that up. He's going to click on it. Yeah, that one. Okay. Once he's inside of here, again, if you're following along, you need to go up to New and then Workbook and launch it. Okay. David's going to do something first that you guys don't need to do. And what he's doing is he's going to filter this to an LEA. You can watch how he does that. He's going to go down there. He's going to find LEA name. And by the way, it's alphabetical. So if you like, which one? We're going Jordan. We're on Jordan today. He's just setting that filter. You guys will be defaulted already to your LEA. So just be aware that that's what's happening. So the next thing I want to have him do, so this is understanding the data set. What's inside of here? You kind of have to explore a little bit. And the way to explore, like I showed last week, is sometimes it's just dragging and dropping the name of that element, which is either a measurement or a dimension, and seeing what's inside of there. So just letting you know is this is kind of exploratory. Unless you already know the information very well, sometimes you have to explore a little bit. In that exploratory process, I know that there's 2019, 2021, and 2022 inside of there on the school year. So I need David to grab school year and put it in the filter after he viewed it. So that's the first thing. We're going to select all. Well, what do you want to do? Yeah, let's select all. He's going to hit OK, and then he's going to go over on that filter, right-hand mouse will drop down arrow, and he's going to show the filter because we want to be able to go through and click on it and see what's going on in there. So he's going to, on the very side, there's that little, I don't know if you call it carrot or arrow, or what we call it carrot. He's going to click on it, go down. You have so many options. Don't let it blow your mind. We're just going to say a single value drop down. He's going to click on that, and he's going to set it to 2022. Now, best practice. How do you remember what you've done? Well, sometimes put it up in the top menu. Right now it says Sheets 1. And what that's telling him is it's telling us what the name of that sheet is. So if he changes the name of the sheet and calls it growth, it's going to change. What year are we looking at? So David's going to go up on by growth, and if he hovers there, kind of opens up or highlights that area. He's going to either double click or click on the edit, open that up, you get a dialog box. I'm going to have him enter two things. You guys only are going to enter one. The two things he's going to enter is, what LEA are we looking at? So he goes over, insert, drops in LEA name, and then he's going to go in there and drop in the year. Now this is basically HTML, so I don't know what he did. I don't know if he put a space in there or not. Yeah. Okay, he did put a space. So if you just slam them all together, then it's HTML. It's just going to collapse everything. If you have to put a space or hyphen or colon, whatever you want to do, you can do that. Just letting you know that's the process. So there's the header. Okay. Here's the fun thing. We're going to teach you how to do a calculated field, which means as you're working through the data, sometimes you want it to do something different from what it actually is displaying. Or I'm going to do a calculation, right? So to find the calculated field, you go up to the very top. Next to the search, there is a caret. Open up that caret or click on it, and you're going to say, the very first thing in there is calculated field. He's going to click on that. You get a dialog box. This dialog box is how do I start leveraging and using all the functionality within a statistical business intelligence tool? Some of you are going, I have no idea what to do here. I need some help. There is a fly out little arrow on the right-hand side that he can click on and say, help me do something. And these are different procedures. What do you call them? Functions, thank you. Functions that are built inside of there that we're like, I want to do something with this. I want him to do a case. So click on case before you do it, David. Or you can type in search, type the word case, and it gives you basically the, thank you, the syntax of what you need to put inside of them to make this thing work. So we're going to do a case statement. We're going to take is proficient, which is a measurement. No, it's a dimension. And we're going to change it into basically an integer. So the way he's going to do that, he's going to type case, start typing is proficient. It's a space inside of there. You know you've got it because it's going to change its color, and it's going to have those square brackets. He's going to type when 1, then 1. Actually, that's when true. I think it's going to yell at you. Yeah. When true, then 1, else 0, and then he's going to end it. And you know you've got it right because down at the very bottom left-hand side it says the calculation is valid. If it's not valid, it will tell you. And then it will give you some suggestions. So like if he makes a mistake, he's like, what's wrong with this thing? You read that and it can help you through that. So he goes back in, fixes whatever it was, hits apply, hit OK. But you got to call the name. So you got to label these things. You don't have to, but it helps. It helps tremendously. Proficient. So we'll just call this. So this is proficient. Okay. So he's going to take proficient now and he's going to grab it and drop it on the rows. And it does some automatic thinking for us, and it's got this huge number. We don't want that huge number because it's just summing a whole bunch of ones. Well, that doesn't help. I want the average. So David's going to go back up to it, and he's going to change it to average. Or you can go up there and click on it. There's so many ways to skin this cat. You can change that to average. You now see that that's between 0 and 0.4. This is your percent proficient calculation. of all the kids that we're looking at in Granite School District for 2022, Jordan, 2022, it's saying for, if he hovers over to give us an exact number, but saying that's your proficiency rate. Well, this is all, this language arts, math, and science, and we want to format this thing a little bit better. So I'm going to have him click on the edit access. We're going to make it a fixed, and we're going to change that to from a 0 to a 1, which basically is going to be a 1. When you look at this, because it's a percentage, 0 to 100%. And then he's going to click on that one, and he's going to do a format number right there, yeah. And he's going to change that to a percent, and let's just have 1 decimal place. Okay? Fantastic. Now, problem. I've got language arts, math, and science all collapsed into 1. I need to separate those out somehow. To do that, we have filters, right? So we'll have them grab test or subject area. And he's going to drag and drop that and put it in the filter. We can do one of two things. For time purposes, we're just going to do one thing, but you could put this and make it so it's a dynamic filter and you can change it. What we're going to do is he's just going to click on L. So we're just going to look at language arts and he's going to hit OK. Again, there's multiple ways to do this. I'm just sharing with you. Yeah, multiple ways. Now, great. What I want to do is now I want to correlate these with the SGP. So if he goes down into the measurement, the word SGP is sitting there. He's going to grab that and drop it into the column. And he's going to look at how the SGP is being calculated. Right now it's being a sum. Doesn't make sense for what the value is. He's going to put it on a median because now he's making that an MGP. He's going to go in and edit the axis for that one and make it between 1 and 100. Because we know that's what the range is for MGPs. And he's got one little dot on his page. What you want to be able to see, it depends on what you want to examine, but we need to see the level of detail. What we'll do right here is we're going to look at schools. So he's going to go grab school name or whatever, yes, school name. He's going to drop that over in that little dialog box underneath color called details and let go. So now we're looking at Jordan School District. We have, he's changing it to circle because he's particular. We have simple graph between, okay, here's, what are you doing? He's playing with it, and you can too. But what you're seeing here is, here's the performance of all my schools, their language arts, percent proficient by growth. I could think of maybe 20 things off the top of my head that I could add to this real quick. I could filter, show me my special ed kids, show me my low-income kids, show me my EL kids, show me any combination of that. Show me, I want to see this not by school, but I want to see this by my test name. You can pull one out of that detail. Go ahead. So take out the detail school. He just pulled that out, and now he wants to drop test name inside of there on the detail. Now he's looking at this by test. This is where the analysis happens. You can go in and start dragging and dropping and changing and doing all kinds of whatever analysis you need to do to your heart's content. That's how you get into the data. And we're just showing this is one way of visualizing the data and understanding that the analysis process is really, can I see the results almost as fast as I can think of the question? So if you're working with your board members or with the teachers or with, your curriculum directors or whoever, and they start having questions, well, what about this? What about this? This is a powerful tool again, the more you're into it, very quickly can you answer these questions and just drill into and find out. So again, are there other ways to do this? You bet. Maybe you're an SPSS expert, maybe you're a SASA expert, maybe you're you want to take this data into Qualtrics and run it in Data IQ. That works too. This is a tool. It's a powerful tool. So, any questions? Mine's blown.
The only question is, some questions about, from Seth.
Seth,
Yes, he cannot. Seth said, sorry, I have to scroll up. The Tableau account is not currently allowing me to publish as save reports I am creating or modifying from the serve to my personal space. Is that feature going to be turned on?
that's a great question. It's a debate that we're having, that we don't have an answer yet. So, can I save my stuff? No. Great practice for you because you have to recreate everything again and again until you get really good. We are creating your generic stuff. So Seth, there is a strong desire to say, I want to make you able to save this. There's some limitations that we have to deal with on the server. And there's some permissions that we really have to get hammered out with our data governance in this process. And it's not been hammered out yet. So, great question. Sorry, Seth. I would love for you to be able to say, and save and done. But
In the meantime, you can download an image.
Yeah.
A PDF, the PowerPoint.
thank you, David. I mean, you get the data out. That's not an issue. But saving it so you can come back and use it is currently not available. And you're not the only group that this is the discussion point about. So, great question. Next.
No others.
That's it.
Is there a way to sort by teacher, class data, Cactus ID number at this time?
Yes, it's all in there. Teacher IDs in there. You can do sorts on that. You can put it inside the class, class, and yes. Like I said, you can do so much. I can filter this down to a school and then say, I want to see MGPs by my teachers. That's a drag and drop. Okay. We're not doing that because we would be exposing students' IDs very quickly. SSID's in there, right? Yeah, SSID is in there. So yeah, you start displaying that. Okay, David, will you go back to the growth report on the Tableau Public? So we built this report for you. You can go ahead and click on to district level. So okay, so here's the district report. If you want to find your district, let's pick on Provo, because I'm looking at him. You just type in Provo, it's going to highlight it. You can go over there and click on it. Wait, does it click through take you? You changed it? Okay, so now he can say,
You can see at least here where it is.
okay, if I want to go to Provo, how do I do it? Just go select school, level, and then you change your filter here. We're trying to make it so specific. So there's Provo. And you can also do, find a school, look at it, highlight it. You can just choose that school or a school inside of there. You can change, hey, I want to see language arts. I want to see the grade level. You can filter all kinds of things inside of here. Third doesn't have it. So you don't have to memorize everything I just did in the training. It's already built. A little bit nicer. Make sure you know that this is available, and it will be very soon. When I say soon, probably not today, That'll be next week. We hope that this will be on the data gateway. You can just click on it, it'll be there and available. Inside of the secure server, go ahead, let's show them that one. So go ahead and close, we're coming back out. So let's do explore. These are the LEA folders. We go inside of surf. That's where it's at, right? No, where's the growth one at? Well, we have it there down in the student level. Not yet. Okay, it's not there yet. It will be there where you can just actually click down to the student level. Coming. Hey,
Surf files are in our stuff. When we get back to school, I can pull up Tableau, pull up surf files and have last year's spring's data.
yep. All there. Okay. Thank you. I think that's the end of our PowerPoint, right? Did you have something else? Oh, future meetings. Where do you want to go from here? More training? Do you like it here? Go ahead.
Let me jump in because this group has given us some input, including you all's leadership.
Okay.
So there's a general expectation or hope anyway that we have 2 to 3 sessions of training. It looks like based on the survey, most of it would be oriented around novice use. Those will be scheduled throughout this year.
Okay.
1.5 to 2 to 3 hours at a time. I talked to David earlier when he went in about their time is pretty committed. They probably have standing meetings and standing events. It might be helpful for data statistics to provide a couple of ideas about certain days of the week, times of the day, and then you guys come back with an offering of those trainings.
So 3 this year?
But it'd be up to you with the curriculum that would be associated with training.
Okay.
If it builds on one another, we can just maybe delineate which sessions were novice, when it moves to intermediate, and when it moves to advanced, if it follows that trajectory. So some of the users who feel like they fit in a different place would know when to enter.
Okay. That will be coming. Okay. Thank you, Darren. I'm done. Help.
Right.
All right, we're done. Thank you.
And thank you. Join us for the good work you're doing on developing this data visualization tool. As we get ready to transition back, I think our next topic is going to be WIDA.
Yep.
So maybe you'll be up here just to call
Sounds good.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks.
Thank you again for all.
Yeah, it's they want. So, yes.
All right, I think we're good. Is my sound okay since it's not super close to a mic? We're good. All right. Okay, WIDA, yay. This should be pretty quick for my part. Of course, our contact information, reach out with any questions. We are in screening right now, but of course, access is always right around the corner. So just a couple of dates to be aware of. As you're screening, please remember that you need to be updating your SIS. The state does not have access to do updating for you, so it is up to you, the LEAs, to make sure that you are updating your SIS. We need those updated by early October in order for us to send that pre-ID file to DRC. As we get closer, Maureen will let us know the exact date that she needs those updated. Remember, if any updates get missed, and we know that enrollment's always changing,
Even after that pre-ID file is sent, you can still manually upload students into WIDA AMS. Also, just remember that at the end of October, early November, that is when test ordering will be available. We order all kindergarten and online access test materials. LEAs are responsible for ordering Braille and alternate access testing materials during that window. So you only have the abilities to order those two testing materials. And then starting in early December, you can start to do test setup as test sessions will be available. So we will keep reminding you as we get closer to these dates, and of course we will always be sending out, and WIDA will be sending out step-by-step instructions on how to go through all of these different processes. All right, next. Just so you know, there are some Braille updates for Access Braille for our next test session. There has been an update to the test administrator script for the human reader scripts. And then also there will be some sample kits provided. And just know that sample items and any of the sample pieces are not secure materials. You do not return those to DRC, and you are welcome to keep those materials. So just be aware that you will be getting sample items. They're normally very clearly marked as they get sent to you if you get Braille stuff. Okay, next. And of course, you can see a lot of these updates in the WIDA secure portal, and there are practice tests for students. We always really encourage LEAs to make sure that their students have practice test opportunities. WIDA is a very unique test that requires speaking into a microphone. If a student is sitting down for the first time taking the test, speaking into a microphone, that's a very different, intimidating sometimes, just a completely new experience for a student. So please make sure you can do sample items with the students. You can have them engage in the test practice. Just please give students those opportunities. So, and especially, it will help test administrators too with some of those updates, especially with Braille. Good news is that the Data Gateway reports, the actual ISR student reports are available. They were released last week in the Data Gateway. So early August, you were able to see scores for WIDA Access last year in the Data Gateway. But as of last week, the actual reports you can click on and you can see now. So we're happy you didn't have to wait till for much longer on those. Next, just some updates and reminders about training opportunities. Our next training opportunity is going to be scaffolding learning through language. This is an in-person workshop. It will be updated. It says Salt Lake area. It will be up at the Capitol. That has been updated in Midas. I don't know if y'all lost me, but I'm here.
Hopefully the field can still.
I do see.
It's projecting in Zoom. It's just the room. It's like the streams died because I can still hear you in Zoom.
Yeah, the slides are on.
Okay, I don't know if we have ability. Can you advance the slides?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, here we go.
Yes.
Okay, and of course, again, contact information. I'm going to actually turn some time over to Tracy Gooley right now as we have exciting news. This year we are going to be doing an Access alternate field test as well. We constantly hear from the LEAs how we need to update, we need an updated and refreshed alternate access test. But one thing that we're really excited about with being able to finally field test new alternate access items is that with this field testing, we will finally, in the near future, be getting an alternate screener. Yay! So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to give you some information about this alternate access field test.
Okay, so Megan covered some of it. So WIDA has created, right, they're working on creating a new alternate assessment for access. So with that in place, they need to field test items, right? Just like we do with all of our other assessments, we need to find out if they're good, viable items, should they move forward operationally. So it sounds like they had tried to field test some items in some states previously, did not gain the information they needed. So they have decided to go forth, and we will need to help administer this alternate field test. So it will be like administering the WIDA, but standalone. Does that make sense? So we're not embedding field test items into the operational assessment. So we need you to test our kiddos in 2 windows. Okay, that's the biggest thing. So with that in place, right, like we can't, like we've got to participate, and WIDA needs a sampling of students across all the states, right, in order to move forward with doing this alternate assessment and then also being able to have that screener available. So we really are looking for you to participate.
Tracy, can I make one comment?
Yes.
I just want to point out that under bullet 2, the rationale for having 2 tests is that these students with significant cognitive disabilities will have less testing fatigue. Rather than having one longer test, they have chunked it into 2 pieces. So while there are some logistics, it really is better for students to have it as a separate field test. Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, go ahead, you can go to the next page, Kim. Okay, so what does this look like? So here is our field test window. So the field test window will open February 14th. You have until April 17th. I do not recommend going that long. You have DLM that comes into place, and then we also still have to administer the regular, right, access alternate assessment to these kiddos. So please get with your, whoever it is that goes out, does your WIDA testing in your districts in February. Go out and give this alternate field test. Okay, the regular access testing window is January 5th to March 3rd. Okay, so figure out how you guys are going to kind of tackle administering both. Okay, there will be some additional quiz questions and additional training slides to the already existing training for WIDA Access. It will add an additional about 15 minutes to that training. It will just walk your teachers through kind of what the expectations are. That's how they're providing training to teachers on what to do with administering the alternate.
I'm so sorry, just to add on to that, Tracy has that it was beginning September 1st. There was a little bug in the system. It wasn't actually available till the 7th. So if you have anyone, so please be checking in the WIDA Secure portal and check the certifications that any of your test administrators have done for those trainings. If they did it anywhere from September 1st through 6th, especially for that alternate access training, the field test information was not in the training. So you'll just need to have them go back and
They have to do the whole training again?
no, just relook at that
part, the last part.
that little additional 15-minute portion.
Okay, so have your teachers reach out if they have any questions with that. Okay, so training is getting tacked onto the regular. All right, next. Okay, field test materials. So here's how they are getting these materials to you. There is nothing that you need to order. They will start automatically shipping field test materials to sites February 7th. Okay, they are basing the numbers to ship to sites on last year's numbers, testing numbers. Does that make sense? So there's nothing that you need to do to order materials. Now, if you have, let's say, less kids, right, than you had last year, they're going to overship materials, just test the kids that you have. Now, let's say you have more kids, right, than you had last year, and they send you materials and you're short 5. Don't worry about it. Just test the kids that you have materials for. Does that make sense? Okay, so don't worry about trying to get additional materials. We just need a sampling across the state in the field test. Now, don't get confused. You will still need to order materials for the regular operational access alternate assessment that opens in January.
Again, that testing window, we just
I know.
announced.
Okay, so put a timeline together. So you need to order materials, right, for your existing students that you have that will be participating in the regular access alternate assessment, right? Proceed forward as normal with that. The only difference is you will get additional materials, right, for the field test. Okay, you don't have to order them. They're going to show up right here in your box. You will know their field test because will have this little dog on it. This is their their WIDA field test dog. Okay, so they said inside your yellow box that you will get, right, your field test materials will be in there, and you will know that those are the field tests because they'll have the image of the can-do dog. Take those, administer what you can, be done with it, and then move on to your regular. Okay, does that makes sense?
And again, we will, as we get closer to this, we will really make sure that we're delineating between the two. Just remember, you'll get your initial shipments for everything based on when your LEA asked to have your shipment. So sometime early January, when you are going back, right, that's your regular stuff. You will see a month later your field test alternate materials show up automatically. And again, the shipping is whatever you have set as well in DRC. So if you have things going directly to sites, probably want to give those schools a heads up that they're going to get an additional shipment. If you are getting it at the district office, just be ready to divvy it up and send it out.
Okay, so on this last page in the slide, I linked to you. So WIDA has put out an entire webpage dedicated to this field test, all the work that's been happening. I have been very heavily involved, just so you know, with WIDA on this project. We've been helping look at a lot of the different stuff that the resources that they're creating around this new access. So it is really awesome. But there's a whole webpage there dedicated. They are also going to be providing on Thursday, December 1st, from 11 to 12:30, a sort of kind of webinar Q&A session around the field test. So if you have questions, I've linked here to get to their webinar page, and you can attend that webinar. You can put your teachers on that webinar, pass it out so that they can get answers to their questions directly from WIDA. And then what WIDA has suggested is just kind of overarching general questions about the field test. Please contact their client service center. And if you have questions about materials and ordering additional materials or returning materials or anything around materials, please reach out to DRC. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me know if you need some clarification or anything else. Please feel free to email me.
Another quick shout out. Elise is going to have several slides where she's seeking some feedback from you about Utah Aspire Plus. So if you're not in the Nearpod, we would love it if you administer Utah Aspire Plus, if you guys would join the Nearpod so that you can participate in the collaboration and the poll that she's going to ask. So we've got about 78 people in the Nearpod, and I think we have more people than that on the. And I'm sure somebody who's monitoring chat will put the link back in for me because I can't see the chat. Sorry, guys.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay, go ahead, Elise.
All right, so just a heads up for Utah High School benchmark training. That will be held in 2 weeks, September 29th. The MIDAS course is linked there. Similar to the RISE training, the first hour is going to be more high level. The kind of like a basic overview. So if you're a new user, that's a great intro, or if you have been very seasoned with Utah Aspire Plus, it's just a great refresher. Section 2 will be from 10 a.m. to noon, which will be significantly more comprehensive as far as diving into the menu options that are provided for those benchmarks.
Are we recording that training?
Yes, it will be recorded as well, and I'll put the link once it's been uploaded to the YouTube in the AD memo so that it can be referenced or shared if needed. So a couple of things with those high school benchmarks. Make sure that you're checking your teacher user accounts and enabling ones that need to be, or disabling ones that are no longer needed. And then check the work request emails so that notifications are going to the right place when you start getting those transfer requests for students. As a heads up for Windows with Pearson, the high school benchmarks are currently open and available and will be through June 30th. And then the spring summative window for Utah Aspire Plus will open March 6th and go through May 12th. So I want to talk a little bit about Utah Aspire Plus today and get some feedback from you. You have a collaborate board available, and I just want to get an idea if you are aware what the legislative purpose or purposes are for administering the Utah Aspire Plus. Why do we do it? Go ahead and put your thoughts down. If someone types something that you would have typed, feel free to use the little heart as well. Predicting ACT scores. Lots of hearts, yes. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, it's on the, see it, our turn.
Accountability for 9th and 10th grade. If you want to hear about post-secondary readiness, college career ready. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the purpose of the Utah Aspire Plus test is number one right there, calculating student academic growth between 9th and 10th grade, and then that predictive ACT score that so many of you hit on. But it is not necessarily to inform instruction like an end of course assessment. And that's where I think we are getting kind of some gray area or misunderstandings, some misconceptions that there are definitely ways to use it for informed instruction, but it is not its purpose. I don't know if Darren or Kim want to expound on that a little bit. You're welcome to take time to do that. If not, we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, those of you who've been working in assessment for a number of years will remember that SAGE, the original state standards assessment, started in 2014, was originally administered in grades 3 through 11, language arts, math, and science. And that end of course assessment, which is aligned to this, we talk core standards for those particular core instructional units or sections of standards, really could provide, I was in the LEA at the time, in the secondary educators, especially in ELA in the district that I came from, valued the feedback that they got, the reporting information they received, because they would use that in their PLCs, English language arts teachers would particularly. Then that assessment was constricted down to 3 through 10, and then in 2018 there was a bill passed, might have been 17, but 17 or 18, a bill was passed to create this new high school assessment, which is it's really short in the code. It just says just like that, predictive score, and then predictive ACT score. So growth and predictive ACT score. We then went to RFP with the goal, because we could have purchased an off-the-shelf assessment. ACT themselves had a test called Aspire, a whole system that would start in the elementary level that tries to provide predictive ACT scores for students and could show growth year over year. But those kind of assessments are not aligned to our core standards. And so as employees for the State Board of Education, we have interest in honoring their authority. One of their primary authorities and roles is to establish rigorous standards for core areas in all classes. So we went to RFP in 2018, and Pearson came back with this hybrid solution, which we know as Utah Aspire Plus. So the Aspire term in that title of that test is a reflection that there are some items that come from ACT's item bank and some items that come from Utah's item bank that we've developed since 2014 for these areas. In a perfect world, that would be a 50-50 split, right? 50%. That's not true particularly in mathematics, because ACT standards, especially their Aspire, is not aligned to secondary math 1 and secondary math 2 very tightly. A lot of their standards are aligned to 8th grade math, 7th grade math, even into 6th grade math. So because our Utah Aspire Plus is still aligned to the core standards, particularly language arts 9 and 10, secondary math 1, secondary math 2. We know science, we don't have a 9th or 10th grade science class. So as you know, the science standards are aligned to Utah core standards, but since we don't have one class that all 9th grade science takes, we developed an assessment that has chunks of standards out of the biology, physics, chemistry, earth systems. So as your educators talk to you about the Utah Aspire Plus, there is a misperception that the test is not aligned to Utah core standards, and that's not true. The name of it really points to the fact that the board's gone to great length to make sure the test is aligned to the standards. But now we have this end-of-year test instead of having it tied to a course, which changes the nature of it, much like ACT, which is an end-of-year test. The way that we can use that information then changes. I think this is what you're alluding to, Elise. As a teacher, it's different, the value that I get from that particular assessment. We also know that the reporting capacity within Pearson's assessment platform does not equate in quality. This is my opinion. So I say when we know, share an opinion. It doesn't match the quality of what we would hope to have for reporting functionality at the classroom, teacher, building level, and district level. So we are working on that through contract amendments with Pearson, and we hope to be able to update you on that in the coming months. So we're addressing that, but the purpose of the assessment, like you're saying, Elise, really has changed. Now that it's an end-of-year assessment, it's got this battery of tests. There were comments in the Jamboard about to meet federal accountability. It is correct. We still have to test all students in language, arts, and math in grades 9 and 10 to meet requirements under that Utah Consolidated Application we started off talking about at the beginning of the meeting that we're revising. So we still take the data out of Utah Aspire Plus to identify proficiency rates, which was identified correctly on the Jamboard. We still do that with language arts, math, and science, but it takes some maneuvering on our data and statistics part to tie those sub-scores back to some kind of a class, and especially in science, it gets really challenging. But I think it's just important to have that overall vision so that teachers don't get overly frustrated with trying to fit the purpose and use and the results we get from Utah Aspire Plus into the same model that we get with an end-of-course assessment.
Thank you. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So on the poll, a few ADs and LEs have reached out asking how you administer Utah Aspire Plus and if you recognize any pros and cons to like the battery or overtime. So as the question comes up, go ahead and answer just as best you can based on your knowledge of what your LEA does for administration. You should be able to see your options being complete battery in one day, subject by subject, a content teacher with current content students, or possibly a randomly assigned proctor for various groups of students. Natalie is saying it's not letting them answer.
We have people answering. I don't know why. We had people answering, so I don't know. We had a few people
You had a
answering.
few?
I wasn't
We
able
had
to
a few
use it.
comments come in as well.
Yeah, there's comments also in the chat. Let's see. Our junior high students test differently than high schools. Content teacher with current content student, complete battery.
I think Jordan said, is there a way to select all?
Select all, not a bad one, not a bad one.
That would be Granite too.
Okay.
Each school does it differently, so I can't answer that.
Content teacher with content students, complete battery. Okay. And then the next Collaborate board is going to ask, basically, with how you administer, what are some pros and cons that you've experienced with the administration of how you administer? Or if you've changed it from like battery to content teacher, why did you make that change, or what was your thinking there? We've had some people reach out and just want to know what other people are doing and what successes you've had or what challenges you faced.
And one of the reasons we're asking this question is because there is a lot of concern over high exclusion parental opt-out rate for Utah Aspire Plus. And so what we're trying to do is see if there are some LEAs who are having more success administering it, understanding, Joan, like Granite does it different ways. Are there some schools that do it? If they do it this way, they seem to have better success than doing it another way, so that we can kind of reach out also not only to everyone in our field, but also to provide some feedback maybe to Pearson that we can say, it would work better if we could do it X, Y, and Z, because that is a concern, so.
As people are posting their ideas here, if you were asking these questions, feel free to read through some of those responses to gather ideas for yourself as well.
Jen, were you going to say something?
We're trying to work on a PR campaign for Utah Aspire Plus because our opt-outs have more to do with the perception in our communities, in some of our communities, that it's a waste of time. And some of that is coming from them not seeing, it's sort of a double-edged issue, right? So if students are not taking it, then in community councils, they don't have anything to look at in terms of how their school is doing. And so we're trying to figure out how we increase the visibility of why it's important to take the Utah Aspire Plus, but that's been difficult. So if you've got any suggestions for this promotion campaign that we're trying to do, why do I want to take this test from some students?
everywhere?
Because it's their civil right.
What?
I respond by saying, because it's their civil right. Without that data, how can you ever say like my educational needs are being met?
The predictive ACT score, one thing that we've noticed is that a lot of schools aren't really using the predictive ACT score to its full benefit. And one of the reasons why the growth between 9th and 10th, of course, has been problematic because who expected the pandemic, right? But the predictive ACT score, we don't have the same opt-out rate with ACT because suddenly it becomes like real. So for many, many students, not taking ACT limits their ability to apply for scholarships. Whether colleges are requiring ACT is kind of a different subject, but the only way they qualify for many scholarships or find out that they're even eligible for scholarships is by completing ACT. Well, how do we know that they're ready to take ACT? If they take Utah Aspire Plus, they get a predictive score in 9th grade. If they take it in 10th grade, they get a predictive score. And some schools are actively, especially the high schools at 10th grade, are reaching out a lot to those students that are showing, whoa, we have some work to do. And there's a target area that no matter how the results are predicted, are provided, that's where it is. And we're working really hard with Utah Aspire Plus. This year we should have reports within 48 hours, but that's, but so far so far it looks good. So, but that would be probably one of the things I would definitely be messaging. And it would be useful to look up, even have some of your colleges come and do some parent night kind of information, like what kind of scholarships, how do they use ACT scores to determine that? And what happens if you're not ready? Because, Utah's really unique. For some states, there are multiple states that require the ACT and use it for for their 11th grade test, but they don't pay for it. They don't have to take a national test. They don't have to do that. We even provide a free test preparation for ACT with Schmoop. So it's taken very seriously, and I think that that's where this message has gone into, is it doesn't matter. But I think talking to teachers about it first would help a lot, because, a lot of times that attitude of it doesn't matter, it doesn't really measure what I teach in science. It doesn't really matter what I teach. ELA is a kind of a different animal, which is why we have more students take ELA and reading than we have take math and science. But that's where just so you know, that last year our opt-out rate was remarkably different between those two. So it's kind of an interesting thing. That would be what I would suggest, Joan. Anybody have anything else? All of us hear it, so.
Yeah,
And we do many of those things.
I put 3 links to resources that have been created when we first started with Utah Aspire Plus to communicate the value of the assessment and the unique characteristics of it that might be helpful to the district and other districts who are looking at that. I think the comment in here about the delayed scores, I do agree with that that's a problem, both for the students feeling like there's any personal value for them taking the assessment, and then also for their teachers who want responses or data if they're going to administer an assessment. So we're hopeful that making that change this year. That's been delayed because of the pandemic. That predictive ACT score is required pre-equating until we get our original 9th graders all the way through 11th grade, so that we have pre-equated data for the predictive score for ACT for 9th and 10th grade assessments. But we're in a place going into this year that should be eliminated. We'll talk about it with our TAC group in October. The contract we have with Pearson actually references our technical advisory committee making the recommendation that they'll do that as soon as our technical advisory committee tells them that they recommend going forward with funding their scores. So that hopefully will help as well. Appreciate Granite taking steps to try to help students and parents understand that there is some value for them, and we'll do what we can to make that a reality for the endless leaders.
That perception for science teachers that there's no information for them, is it true? If you read the activity report, it actually gives them information in terms of how well those teachers are teaching the practices and cross-cutting concepts. It's purposely built into the report when we align the items to the report. So it might not give them content level information, but if they're not teaching the practices and cross-cutting concepts, they are hurting their kids in terms of their science score. And I heard a parent at a parent night last night ask if their 10th grader take ACT this year because they want to know how well they're going to do on it. And I'm like, well, that's Utah Aspire Plus should be telling them how well they're going to do or not. That was kind of a misconception that they had. And the teacher, the parent even admitted at the beginning of the meeting, they had gotten their 9th and 10th grade reports from last year. They knew they got the reports, and they didn't realize it or realize it was actually giving them that predictive score for the kids. So, just a thought, because I'm going to be talking to the science teachers next month at the science teacher conference, letting them know, not only does it count, let's look at how it affects your school grades. These are all the areas of your school grade that are affecting your school.
Great. Thank you so much for your feedback. If you had reached out or even had similar questions, take some time to look through that. There's going to be one more collaborate board asking you, what do you find most useful when reviewing that Utah Aspire Plus data, and how do you support schools in your LEA with that? So if you have any feedback regarding those 2 points, that would be helpful as well. If you are one that has those same questions, take some time to scroll through the responses.
One question I have, since you guys are talking about the reports, we would love to know what exactly you want to see. Like, give us specifics. Don't just say we need some better reports, because when we provide the feedback to Pearson, they always come back at us with, well, what do you want? So what we would love is if anybody would like to, you don't have to do it in the collaborate board, but if there are specific things that you would like, send Elise and me the feedback, because we are actively discussing this with Pearson on a weekly basis. So we would love to know specifically what you think would be more useful, understanding, like, because we are looking at wanting to provide the level of data that everybody needs. But sometimes from our level, it's hard to gauge like what we can see. So
I think getting it to a standards level would be really helpful. If they could report out somewhat, some greater detail on the overall results. You could do a standards analysis report on the high school benchmarks. You can't do that on the Utah Aspire Plus. That would be really helpful.
One of the problems is it's an end of grade test, not an end of course test.
But it's still tied to standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it still should be able to do that. And if it doesn't do that, it's not very useful for us. Great.
Standards are at least reporting categories. The blueprint.
And just so you know, we have provided, some people have typed in, we've actually given them sample rise reports and said, can we get this?
If you have thoughts that come to you later, you're also welcome to reach out to me with that feedback as well.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. And this is just a reminder about the test accessibility and accommodations for ACT. We just had our first training last week. The TA system is open. You don't have to wait until And I wouldn't wait until the deadline of January 13 to begin entering those accommodations. So if you know students have your current IEP and 504 plans and English learners, you can go ahead and start making those entries so you're not overwhelmed and up against deadline in January. There is a link to the on-demand training that was last week.
It's my fault.
It's okay.
Sorry, my mouse isn't working, guys. I apologize.
And then just the updated accessibility supports guide for the ACT. There were no major changes, but there's the link to the updated one. You can go for it now. Okay, yeah, just a reminder before you share any information with ACT, make certain you have the consent to release information. You don't have to submit this to ACT, but it's just for you to keep on file at the school. No initial late request will be accepted. If you miss that deadline, you've missed it, and then you're treading some legal water that we won't want to get into, but it does happen. Okay. Okay, and then I just highlighted some questions that came about at our accommodations training. I don't think these are going to be included on the recording. It's just a basic recording, so I wanted to highlight them. One question was, what documents can be uploaded for English learners? We have guidance posted on our assessment webpage under ACT, and there's a link to it there of exactly what you need to submit for English learners. There's some options there. Another great question was, when you're uploading your documents, was it the same process as last year? So if you're new, that would be irrelevant, but there's 2 spots where you upload documents, and yes, the system has not been changed. You can upload the student's IEP twice. It can be the same document. Is a psychological evaluation warranted? No. The IEP or 504 English learner plans are sufficient. One person asked, can you submit, if a student is an English learner and an IEP, can you submit things at different times? Yeah, don't do that. I mean, even within an LEA, you should be collaborating. If a student has those multiple services, I mean, everything should really be documented in one spot. If it's not, every LEA works different. Make certain that you're making one request. Okay. If you're just doing online testing, if you request a human reader, does it default to having the test read to them? So one thing that happened a few times in previous years is maybe the assessment director or whoever is entering the accommodations, they're entering them in a different format than how their LEA is testing. So just be mindful of what your school is using and spread that knowledge to your LEA so accommodations are submitted correctly. In this case, it would default accordingly. The one change that ACT did add to their accessibility guidelines was the use of a phone. This is the most common use, is a use of a phone for diabetic monitoring, and that is allowable. You still have to submit the request and adhere to some common sense policy that's outlined. All right. Here's our contact information if you have any questions. And then just a reminder about AP exams. There is also a deadline for those, and we're pushing that out through our special education communications as well. And it's similar to ACT. You need a consent form, and their deadline is not a hard deadline, but if you can get those in by January 18th. In our contact information, Kirsty Schreck is our AP specialist at USBE, and you can message me if you have any questions about accommodations. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The older version of ACT version 3.0 was retired August 1st, so students should have seen a warning banner. They feel that there was a time we could log into both. And I'm pretty sure that time has passed. So the active classrooms need to have the newer product, and it's the video tutorial on how to do it. It's pretty easy. And Smooth is exceptionally helpful. If you have any questions or need to talk to Autumn, You can call her, you can email her. She's very accessible. New password this year, Aspen. People ask, just think about the state tree. You've got the new password. Congratulations. Access East Group, there was a webinar that was recorded on August 25th. You can still access it. They didn't get as many people as they hoped, but the training is still available. And you click on the link, go to the password, go to the training. There's this passcode, and it is 2 equal signs. It's not like a dash to get to the password. 2 equal signs, 7A and Y, and Y 90. That'll get you to the training. So, and that's pretty much all I got. Except don't forget, you've got some of you have still got your ACT org file due back September 23rd to us. I heard from Emily today that about half are done. That's awesome. Keep up the great work, and let's get the rest of those in so we can get that org file up and running and keep things moving for ACT. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Scott. To finish up our meeting today, I'd always express my appreciation to Emily for keeping us going on our technology side, for Mimi and their communication on behalf of our team out to youth assessment directors regularly, and then the rest of our staff here for working hard to try to support you and in your role in your community around assessment. And then I'm grateful for the good work that each of you do in supporting our children. Thank you for that work in our communities. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll have next communication officially on an AD memo.